much, everyone, for joining us today as we discuss a very important topic, suicide prevention. This year's theme is creating hope through action, and I have a panel of mental health professionals with me today from TaskUs who will help us understand and take action to prevent suicide in our families, our friendships, our coworkers, and beyond. So let's get started with some introductions. My name is Jean Claffey, and I'm the Senior Manager for Wellness and Resiliency at TaskUs. I'm a licensed professional counselor with over 25 years experience in mental health treatment, suicide prevention, and a specialization in brain-based healing. I've been with TaskUs now for 3 years, and I'm just really excited to be a part of an organization that truly values the well-being of its employees and encourages destigmatization of mental health topics, particularly suicide prevention. So let me turn this over now to Mauricio.
Thanks, Jean. My name is Mauricio, and I'm the Wellness and Resiliency Coach for Colombia. I'm a professional psychologist with 15 years of experience in clinical work and a master's in clinical psychology. I have been with TaskUs for a little more than a year. And while I initially did not come into the wellness program, when I saw the opportunity to join this team, I jumped at it. As taking care of each other is so central to the TaskUs way, I just had to be where I could help the most.
Thanks, Mauricio. Let's meet Elena.
Thank you, Jean. I'm really glad to be here. I'm Elena, the Wellness and Resiliency Manager in Europe. I'm a licensed psychologist with more than 7 years of experience and a master's in organizational psychiatry. Currently, I'm pursuing my professional doctorate in psychology. I have been with TaskUs for over a year, and I love working with a team that aims to remove stigma surrounding mental health and ensures accessibility to services for all.
Thanks so much, Elena. And now, Jasmine.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much, Jean, for inviting me on such a great platform. So for everyone, my name is Jasmine Tahir. I am the Wellbeing and Resilience Manager from India. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist with more than 8 years of experience and also currently pursuing my PhD in psychology. When it comes to TaskUs, I'm a pretty newbie here in this organization, but the best part is that I'm loving this, loving every single day because I'm learning every day something new and I'm making myself such a better person. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Jasmine. Over to you, Monica.
Thanks, Jean. I'm Monica Pamatmat, the Wellness and Resiliency Senior Manager for South Sites in the Philippines, based out of our Cavite office. I started my career in the helping profession as a life coach in TaskUs 6 years ago. I'm proud to have seen TaskUs grow, especially our Wellness and Resiliency department, and how we continue to help our employees' well-being. It feels like it was just yesterday when I first spoke to my very first coachee, and this was a week after life coaching training. He had thoughts about suicide. This is a very important matter, and I'm proud to be alongside with you all talking about this.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. So let's get started. Jasmine, why is it important, do you think, to openly discuss suicide?
Well, Jean, suicide is a global health crisis. The World Health Organization estimates that over more than 7 lakh people die by suicide every year, and some estimate it to be more than 8 lakhs as well. That's an astounding number, especially since we know that, for every death, there are many more attempts. This is something we cannot ignore, and we must bring awareness, and provide resources for intervention to bring those numbers down. Many times people are hesitant to talk about suicide at all, thinking that bringing awareness will increase the risk of suicide. Thankfully, that's not true in India. Why? Because by raising this awareness, reducing the stigma around suicide and encouraging, well-informed action, we can reduce instances of suicide around the world.
Thank you, Jasmine. You mentioned stigma, which is a really important factor here. We're lucky our panel today is from various parts of the world, so let's take just a few moments to talk about some of the different cultural nuances or beliefs when it comes to suicide awareness and prevention. We've worked for many years to destigmatize mental health topics and help-seeking behaviors. In the US, I do believe there's a shift in thinking about mental health and an ever-growing willingness to normalize mental health as part of our overall well-being. There's always room for more growth, though, however. So, Elena, are there some cultural norms or beliefs about suicide in Greece?
Historically, Greece has had the lowest suicide rate in the European Union and currently holds the second lowest rate. Even though we saw a rise during the Greek economic crisis, which was directly associated with austerity measures, Greece still had one of the lowest rates at the time. There are a variety of social and cultural factors that result in this low rate. One of the most important social factors is the importance of strong family relationships across the country. This creates a protective system for anyone struggling with mental health issues. More than that, Greek society still has a strong religious character. In Orthodox Christianity, it is unacceptable to commit suicide under any circumstance, and a person cannot receive a funeral rite. As a result, suicide is equated to a lack of restful passage to the afterlife, which has led to lower rates of suicide. Moreover, our easy access to healthcare is an additional factor that helps mitigate mental health issues that may lead to suicide.
How about in Latin America, Mauricio?
In Latin America, suicide has increased. According to data from the World Bank, in the last 20 years there was a growing trend in suicide rates. Male population tends to be impacted at a much higher rate as well, as males are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than females in our region. Anxiety linked to depression and suicidal risk is a common mental disorder. However, due to misinformation and the stigma that lies about mental disorders, in Mexico, for example, it can take up to 14 years for someone in that culture to reach out for psychiatric services. In Colombia, last year, the Ministry of Health claimed that after recent years, undiagnosed and untreated depression cases have tripled. Latin American culture is particularly vulnerable. It has a great emphasis on resilience and guilt, and it tends to minimize the impact of mental health issues. So, some people just believe that clear signs of sadness, isolation, like reluctance and crying, they should not be expressed because they imply weakness. So people struggling with depression or anxiety will not always manifest the signs. Even less, they won't know how to control them when they begin to emerge. This is why we cannot continue to think that people will seek help when they need it. Mental health requires the effort of all as a society to be attentive to risk factors, to conditions that in this global crisis have exposed some of us more than others. Surveillance and monitoring the words, gestures, behaviors, and as far as we can tell, the thoughts of the people we know are at greater risk is and should be everyone's task.
Interesting. Thanks, Mauricio. Monica, are there cultural nuances in the Philippines when it comes to discussing suicide?
In the Philippines, the suicide rate in 2019 was 2.5 per 100,000 population. Culturally, Filipinos are not keen on asking help from a professional due to accessibility, financial constraints, stigma, and shame. We'd rather talk it out to a friend or a family member. But as a country, we have made some significant improvements in terms of creating awareness and breaking the stigma. When the Mental Health Act of the Philippines was passed in 2018, the law wanted to develop and establish a comprehensive, integrated, effective, and efficient national mental health care system. We have also seen an increase over the years of groups advocating for mental health care to be more accessible and affordable in the Philippines. During the pandemic, deaths have increased as reported by PSA, or the Philippine Statistics Authority, as intentional self-harm rose by 57.3% in 2020 due to millions of Filipinos losing jobs, experiencing financial instability, end of relationships, and illnesses.
So let's hear from Jasmine now. Anything we should know about India?
Well, in India, there are undefined cultural factors that cannot be dismissed and significantly contribute to the worldwide incidences of death by suicide. Culture is an all-embracing term and defines the relationship of an individual to his environment. An understanding of suicide in the Indian context calls for an appreciation for the literary, religious, and cultural ethos of the subcontinent, because tradition has rarely permeated the lives of people for as long as it has in India. Ancient Indian texts contain stories of valor in which suicide as a means to avoid shame and disgrace were glorified. Talking about suicide is a topic which is still swept under the rug, and most of the times, especially in the Indian population. Over 8 lakh people die by, taking their own lives, which is said by the World Health Organization. There's a lot of stigma attached, fear of judgment, which even persists even this day and age. Some even believe that talking about suicide or suicide ideations can encourage it further, hence not reporting it or seeking help in time.
Thanks, everyone. Really interesting to see the different cultural influences on this topic. Thanks for sharing this. It's important to keep this differences in mind when we are intervening. So in general, how might we recognize when someone might be in crisis? What are some of the behaviors we might notice?
There are some common behaviors that we can be aware of that may indicate someone is in crisis or considering suicide. It is important to note that having one of these behaviors or emotions doesn't automatically lead to suicide. However, the intensity and the number of factors present can increase the risk. I'll share a few. Long lasting sadness, mood swings, or unexpected rage. Feeling a deep sense of hopelessness about the future with little expectation that circumstances can improve. Sleep problems, either sleeping too much or long periods without sleep. And also, sudden calmness or a lift of mood can be a sign that a person has made a decision to end their life.
Withdrawal is another behavior to notice. Choosing to be alone, avoiding friends or social activities also are possible symptoms of depression, which is a condition that can increase risk of suicide. You may also notice a loss of interest or enjoyment of activities that the person previously enjoyed. A person who is considering suicide might exhibit a change in attitude or behavior, such as speaking or moving with an atypical speed or slowness. The person might suddenly become less concerned about their personal appearance. Also, potentially dangerous behaviors such as reckless driving, engaging in unsafe sex, and increased use of drugs or alcohol might indicate that the person no longer values their life. A major life crisis might trigger a suicide attempt.
The death of a loved one, or a pet, or the end of a relationship, the diagnosis of a major illness, the loss of a job, or a serious financial problems, those all can contribute to a person being in crisis. One of the things loved ones will find easier to notice is when the person starts to withdraw even from activities they usually enjoy, and changes in self-care, which are also easy to spot, like not showering, leaving the dishes undone for long periods of time, days or weeks, or not brushing your teeth. Often a person considering suicide will begin to put their personal business in order. That might include visiting friends and family they don't see a long time ago, just to say goodbye, giving away personal possessions of great emotional significance, making a will, cleaning up their home. Some people will write a note before taking their own lives, others express in different means. Some will take more radical steps, more evident steps, like buying a firearm or acquiring poison or other dangerous chemicals. More than half of people considering suicide will give someone a warning sign, a friend, a relative, a co-worker. It may be an outright statement. It may be increased talk about that. Things would be better if I weren't here. Every threat of suicide should be taken seriously.
Great, thanks, team. Those are all important signs to watch for if you think someone is in crisis. So, are there certain life circumstances that can increase the risk of suicide?
Well, yes, Jean, there are many factors that increase a person's, risk of death by suicide. So we want to assess the severity and number of factors that can be present. Some of the risk factors that, can be included or considered are previous suicide attempt, history of depression or mental illness, employment problems or job loss, financial struggles, substance abuse, history of adverse childhood experiences, or being a victim of violence.
There may also be relationship factors to consider, like bullying, family or loved one's history of suicide, loss of relationships, high conflict or violent relationships, and social isolation. There could also be some broader community risk factors like lack of access to healthcare or the stigma that we mentioned earlier about help seeking behavior, suicide cluster in the community, and unsafe media portrayal of suicide, community violence, and discrimination.
Thanks, that's great information. And so, if we consider these factors, while keeping in mind also the cultural standards and beliefs. Some of these things may be easier to spot than others. So the other thing is many people are hesitant to intervene, or they believe that there's nothing they can do because they're not a mental health professional. Fact is, there's a lot of things, very effective things that anyone can do that can prevent suicide. A few things to keep in mind if you're with someone in crisis: always try to find a private place that's safe to talk with them. Keep your tone soft and soothing. Keep your posture open and inviting, and really just be genuine. Of course, if your safety or the other person's immediate safety is of any concern, call for emergency service assistance. Sometimes the biggest hurdle is just starting a conversation. We just mentioned stigma around mental health, help-seeking behavior, and even just talking about suicide. So let's talk about what we can do to prevent suicide. Elena, what's a good starting point?
First, ask. If you notice risk factors or changes in behaviors we talked about, be the one to ask if they're considering suicide. We know that asking someone about suicidal thoughts or intentions does not cause them to act. In fact, the opposite is true. By showing you are willing to talk about and hear about someone's experience, you are increasing the likelihood they will accept assistance. The best way to speak up is to be direct but compassionate. Something like, "Hey, Chris, I noticed you've been very sad lately and you've not been showing up for our gatherings. I'm worried about you. Are you thinking about suicide?"
Next, be sure to encourage the person to get assistance from a mental health professional. You don't need to fix the situation or feel responsible for making them feel better. At this stage, the goal is to get them to agree to get assistance.
So, Mauricio, what if they refuse to talk to someone?
Wow, that's a great question, G. Here's what I would say if they won't agree to speak to someone. Listen, I know this is a tough situation and I care enough about you to make sure you stay safe, so I'm going to contact someone on your behalf that can help. And then you have to follow through and contact someone. Sometimes people will think they're betraying their friend's wishes, or the person will be mad at them for not notifying someone else. However, I think it's okay if someone is a little angry at me, but I helped keep them safe.
Such a good point, Mauricio. People in crisis may not be thinking as clearly as they normally would. So it's really helpful for us to take that extra step, if needed, to ensure the person is safe. So we've asked the question, we've encouraged them to connect with a professional. Now what?
Well, now it's time to actually connect them to a professional. So it's important to know the crisis intervention resources that are available in your community. Since this is Suicide Prevention Month, you may have seen, various innumerable awareness campaigns that advertise a local suicide prevention hotline or other local emergency service resources. It is vital that you stay with them until they are connected to a professional. It's not enough to say, "Here's a number you should call." Ask if you can sit down with them while they call, or offer to dial for them, and put them on speakerphone, and you can assist if it is too difficult for them to describe that what's actually going on. It's a good idea to put your local emergency numbers in your phone, in your purse, in your wallet. Then you have quick access, if you ever need them.
Thanks, Jasmine. That's quite helpful. And I really love the idea of keeping some resource numbers on hand. I think that's great. So I hope this brief session has been helpful and that everyone feels empowered to create hope through action to reduce suicide in your circle of influence. This is such an important topic, so I'll challenge you all to share this information with others, and then also take some time to learn some other interventions and get some more information about suicide awareness. You can make a powerful impact. I'm so thankful for my panel members, Mauricio, Monica, Elena, and Jasmine. Thank you all so much.